Hi, everybody, and welcome again. I'm Srishti Chupre, and you are listening to the Purple Science Podcast. So, I'm here after a very long time, quite a long break, but it was festival season. You can't blame me. Just kidding. Well, as I've mentioned before, I recently started a new position at a new place. We're doing a bunch of new things. Lot has been happening lately, and I'll tell you everything about it, of course. But today, we're gonna talk to another amazing guest. We have with us Dr. Edward Duca, who's a science and innovation communication lecturer at University of Malta. He has conducted tons and tons of SciComm initiatives that are amazing, and I have had the privilege to attend one of those. That was one of the most memorable SciComm experiences of my life, without a doubt. His journey in SciComm was so exciting, it just had to be documented on this podcast. So we have him here today. Also, speaking of festivals, I'm going to give you a reason to celebrate by the end of this episode. So stay tuned and let's get to the episode. All right. So, to begin with, I would love to know about your cool story of getting into science and research. And even before we get into your science communication journey, which is very, very intriguing to me, I would like to know how you developed your interest in science and how did your PhD journey happen for you?
Okay, so hello everyone. First of all, my name is Edward Duca. I'm based on the small island of Malta in the middle of the Mediterranean, EU country. Very, very interesting place to visit. Okay, so my PhD journey. Oh, where do I start from? I guess I was born in. I was actually born in London, but I grew up mostly in Malta.
That's interesting.
And
I wasn't aware of that.
yeah, it's because my father was working with Air Malta, so
Hmm.
he was based in Heathrow, and yeah, I just happened to be born there, which now works out well because of Brexit, because I have both a Maltese and British passport, so
Nice.
that's
Awesome.
that's actually now worked out well. Unfortunate, Brexit, obviously.
Hmm.
Uh, it has actually impacted my project and so on because of who you can collaborate now. It keeps changing. So my journey started, I suppose. I felt like I was always, not always, but had a certain curiosity, and the more I learned about science, the more I liked all the facts and numbers and how things work. But I always found like numbers for numbers' sake to be a bit pointless. So I saw maths, unfortunately, because now I learned that maths is actually really useful. But back then I saw maths as just a game of numbers, and it didn't seem very real or practical to me, which I regret now. Um,
Same.
and to be
I can
honest,
totally relate to that statement.
yeah, maybe how it was taught or something.
Yeah.
I just wasn't linking it to how the real world works. It was yeah. Once I started to learn about like physics, chemistry, biology, I was really fascinated by them, and I was doing quite well in all of them. But I wasn't a very good student, so I didn't get my I didn't get inspired into my PhD because I was like top in class. I didn't win awards. The award I won, actually, I did win an award when I was in primary school. I won one because I progressed the most. Because when I first went to school, I was so shy when I was 5 years old or 4 years old that I wouldn't answer my teacher. So she'd ask me questions, but I was too shy to answer. So she actually thought I couldn't speak or I couldn't hear or that there was
Amazing.
something. I've changed a lot now.
Interesting.
I've changed a lot. I had an interest in science when I was young, and I was also interested in the arts, but my school had forced me, unfortunately, to choose between the sciences or the arts. So
Mhm.
at 13, I did have to drop the arts. And I continued in sciences. And then another pivotal moment was when I finished my undergraduate. I took a BSc in chemistry and biology, and it was a dual honors. And then once I graduated, again, I didn't graduate with a very high mark. I think I got a second lower. I got a job with a pharmaceutical company. I was a documentation officer. And within a few months, I was bored out of my mind. So I was like, okay, if I really want to get a job I enjoy, that I love, that I, look forward to going to, I am going to have to study. I'm going to have to work hard. I'm going to have to like do things, get out there, get myself out there. So I actually started studying without anyone telling me to study. And I applied for a master's in cancer cell biology at the University of Leicester and got that. And then I applied to a lot of PhDs because of my low marks in my undergraduate. I hadn't finished my master's yet. It took me quite a few months of searching for a PhD. And then when I got accepted, I actually got accepted to so I was sending loads of letters of interest and lots of emails for months, like 5 letters, applications, and 30 emails a month. So it took a lot of effort, but I got it, and then I got 3 at the same time. One at the University of Aberdeen, University of Edinburgh, and University of Nottingham. And I chose Edinburgh. I was really happy about that because Edinburgh is a beautiful place, and that motivated me to really try and excel in my PhD. But I quickly realized that spending 50 hours in a lab, it's amazing when you discover something new, you uncover something no one else knows. It can be quite, even if it's something small, it can be quite rewarding in that way. But that made me realize that I preferred talking to people, talking about other people's research, organizing things, writing. I also did other things, photography, a bit of design, creative writing. But I realized this in the first year of my PhD. And then I worked really hard to gain these other skills that then led me into this other career, science communication. So I do have a passion in science, about science and research. But once I was doing the genetics research, which was what was my PhD was about, I quickly realized that that type of research wasn't for me. Now I do research in psychom. Hope that answers the question.
Definitely. And thank you so much for saying that, this is very useful, especially for people who are in their early stage of their careers, for undergrads, that if they really want to do something that they love, they really need to put themselves and their work out there. It is so important, especially today. But I also want to know from you, how do you feel about in-person connections? So in my journey, I've made a lot of connections online. And in fact, most of my significant connections were made online, including with you, if I'm not wrong. But then, if somebody is in a college setting, my further questions will be about these two. But how can we build networks, especially in
Mhm.
science, when in a college or an institute setting? And this is independent of our social media uh, lives, or careers.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think social media does intertwine with social media works best, I feel, when it helps your real world connections
Mhm.
rather than distracts you from them, like we wouldn't be able to speak, right, Shushti, if it wasn't for technology and social media and all these apps and so on. And we probably wouldn't have met if it wasn't for that also. But we probably, if I know our story well, we wouldn't have met if I think it was David Price, right, who told you about Steam Summer School. Yeah, exactly. So I was physically with him. And that reminded, and I was telling him about my summer school, that reminded him of you, and he reached out to you. So it's that blend of real world and, social online communications that I think is when things really work well. When we're always posting on social media and not meeting people in the real world, that's when things get problematic. Social media is really good at organizing large groups of people quickly, right? You can have groups, you can have group chats, you can have Facebook, LinkedIn groups, and you can see those as communities of practice also. So if it's a WhatsApp group or Telegram channel or whatever about science communication localized in a region, if people there are active, they're posting when people can meet up, when people can share experiences, then those two start to really make sense. Networks need people to push for them. They don't happen naturally, I think. There is usually some form of organization, some people pushing them to happen. And then they can take a life of their own and turn into things the people who created them didn't expect. But they need some form of push, some form of reason to come together. And it does require drivers. It does require people posting or reaching out or saying hello, talking about meaningful things that other people could be interested in, and sharing experiences and so on. It can be about any topic also. This is, I think, the beauty. And when the social networks are helping those real world connections, that's when this technology to me makes sense.
I agree. It does make a lot of sense. And just to expand on the same thought, because you also said that you were trying to find a PhD for a few months and you were writing letters of interest, and this problem is faced by students at every stage of their career, right? Whether it is undergrad or postgrad or PhD or even further, to actually make these connections, they have to reach out to people who they might not know. It's commonly called cold emailing. That works out great for some people, doesn't work out at all for some other people. So, to build on that, would you like to tell us about how do we make these connections, and how would you advise students to put themselves in front of some of these, let's say, employers maybe, or even potential collaborators?
So I used, I think, two main strategies. One was building up a reputation on social media through regular posting and so on, just so if people Googled my name and so on, they came on profiles which were talking about science, which showed that I am a science communicator. Okay, I might have other platforms like Instagram. I might use it for my photography because I like to do that. I don't really use it anymore, but I'm a bit too busy, unfortunately. But my LinkedIn, my Twitter, and even my Facebook. Facebook, I might have a bit more personal, although I'm toning that down now and focusing more on sharing my work. And so on. Sometimes a bit of personal anecdotes helps people connect with you and want to follow your content. But I would try and see what is your voice, what is your niche on those platforms. However, when I was trying to get into the science communication field, okay, I was a free at that point back in 2008 to 2011. I got my university position in 2012. So before then, especially in 2008, for example, I went to my first science communication conference. I actually paid for it myself because my supervisor at the time didn't see it connected to my PhD, so I couldn't use my own grant money for that. But I did manage to go there, to meet people, talk to them. So you have to put yourself out there. You can't expect people to come to talk to you. You have to go talk to them. You have to know what's going on in the field you want to enter, know what the trends are, be able to talk about them, because that's what people at a science communication conference will be talking about. Currently, there's things like AI in SciComm, or involvement of citizens in research, increasing impact, finding evidence for what science communication does. These are all like hot topics. And going to those conferences did help build my reputation, did help build what people thought of me, and that leads to actual jobs. I was going to science communication, so to also science journalism, because I was looking to meet editors of journals, write for them, and so on. I stopped that once I got my university position as an academic in 2016, because first I didn't join the university as an academic, I joined them as a editor. So when I was doing these sort of things in networking and so on, that's what I was trying to develop. So if I was trying to get into the science writing field, I was trying to develop my science writing portfolio in science communication, events organization, and so on. Back in 2007 or so, I was volunteering for the postgraduate science communication team of Edinburgh and the student organization, also for Edinburgh Café Scientifique. So I helped them organize things. I would host a session or find a speaker for them or design a poster. A lot of that work initially was free, and I still do a lot of free work over and above my job and my position. But they're important to gain experience. They're important to build your CV, your portfolio, and you need to be able to say, if you're going to enter the science communication field, that you've run an event, that you've helped advertise it, that you've run an event that got this number of people, or that was really creative or really innovative, or you wrote it up as a case study for a journal, a publication, or a magazine. These things all sound good and are actually good for people really to build up what they're doing and be able to speak to other people and convince them that they can be trusted, they can fulfill a job, they can excel at it, they can go the extra mile. These are all really important things, and early on I tried to do that to student organizations. I tried to do that through going to courses. So at the University of Edinburgh was very good in offering freelance journalism courses or participant writing for secondary school students, a book on genetics and medicine, if I remember, I helped write. These sort of things. I even wrote for a theatre magazine, a London food magazine. Quite a few very good experiences.
Such an interesting transition from a kid who was shy to answer questions in school to then enjoying communicating his work, and that too in different formats. So lovely.
And other people's work as well.
Yeah,
I talk more about other people's work.
Right. And I really love your advice also about that you can't really expect people to come up to you, you have to go if you want. So the opportunities won't knock your door unless you go out and find them, to be very honest. Especially when it comes to quote unquote communicators like us. We need to communicate our work. So that, yeah, awesome. Would you also like to maybe highlight what happened between your PhD and you said you were editing for a while, you were into creative writing. What was that one transition point when you felt like, okay, science communication is really what I want to do, and this is what I want to go ahead with in my life?
Okay. I think that came really the first year of my PhD. I realized that spending 50 hours in that lab, experimenting on fruit flies, trying to discover what this gene called invadolizin does in fruit flies, so we understand how it works in humans better. That's the summary of my PhD, basically. It was interesting, but learning new skills and so on. But I like to meet people. So then when I started going to alternative science careers, I started hearing about all these different jobs you can do with a PhD. It's not just research in a lab. And science communication was one of them. Science writing was another. I didn't know which I preferred. So I just tried them. And learned by doing, learned through courses and books as well. I did read up about it. I did go to courses about it and slowly built up my knowledge and experience whilst doing the practical stuff. I learned if I liked it or not, just by doing it, just by going up and organizing an event and seeing who comes for it. Or it's amazing. You put a nice poster, you advertise it well. It's a topic or whatever, and boom, you've got 20 people there, 30, 40, 60, sometimes more, over 100. It's amazing. It's just thrilling. It's also like, so that's like the organization part. The writing part, I really liked it because you can be very creative with your words. You see who your audience is. You try to imagine what would captivate them, what would hook them, what would make them want to read the next sentence, how to communicate something really complex simply, finding some metaphor or analogy for it. Those are things that really motivate me and inspire me. And the amount of work you put in it is the amount of work you get out of it. That's what I really liked about science communication, that if you work really hard, you usually get a really cool thing out of it. Sometimes in research, scientific research, it's not always the case. Sometimes you can have your reagents have gone wrong, or your hypothesis isn't the right one. And that's a good thing. Like, you've done the experiment, and the experiment shows you that no, your gene is not involved in this pathway, or doesn't interact with this other gene, or doesn't work in the way other people might have thought it worked, or you thought it worked. So that can be a bit discouraging for me. I think it impacted me quite a bit. That you could be working really long days and you still don't get the massive impact out of it. Whilst I felt how I was doing science communication, especially when I built up my experience. In the beginning, it's still hard. It's hard to learn something new. But then once I built up my experience, I learned I was good at it. It's still a lot of hard work, but you get a lot out of it as well, which I love. The biggest thing I organize is a national festival called Science in the City, and hopefully this year we'll get about 30,000 people coming to the Buscatina and Triton Fountain, and that will be, a major thing for Malta. But seeing all those people come to celebrate science, to meet other researchers, is like, wow, really amazing. Yeah, I love that feeling. And if you want to get into this field, I think the getting yourself out there to realize, to practice it, and understand if it's something you actually like and enjoy. It can be stressful, it can be hard work. Not every moment will be fun, but if overall you're enjoying it, then that is definitely a rewarding career for you to explore.
Wow, that's a really interesting observation. Actually, I've never thought it that way. It is very true that with some exceptions, of course, we can have very controlled. We can do some controlled experiments in science communication, and if we put in the right amount of hard work, it is going to turn out well. That is very true. That's an interesting observation. But I'd like to know if you think this rigorous research experience that comes with a PhD, if you think that plays a role and is significant in your science communication skills as they are today, or do you feel that if you discovered this early on in your career, maybe before PhD, that would have been much better? So
I think, to be completely honest, Shrishti, if I were to do another PhD, it would be in science communication. I wouldn't do another PhD in genetics to get into psychom.
interesting.
If you know you want to get into psychom and you want to explore the academic side of science communication, then I would recommend a PhD in psycho. I think the genetics part is what led me to science communication, because that meant I was living in Edinburgh, not in Malta. I had the opportunity to do psychom in Edinburgh, but the PhD just gave me almost like the excuse to go to the freelance journalism courses, to go to the conferences in science communication that were happening in the UK, to go to like smaller working groups. There was the Beltane network being set up in Edinburgh at the time, which was very exciting. All of these things are what contributed to me building up my experience to enter science communication during my PhD. But I don't think I needed a PhD in genetics to enter science communication. However, my PhD did help me get my position at university.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. To be an academic, you need a PhD, right? And now I'm an academic in psychom, so you need the PhD for that. I had to develop my academic research skills in science communication, but I developed them whilst being a practitioner in science communication, which is tough. So if you have the opportunity to do a PhD in psychom, do that, because we really need people who can do good research, effective research in science communication, but also be able to organize things and all of these kind of stuff.
Interesting, very interesting. So, may I also? I'm honestly not aware of how things work at an academic institution. But what do you think of institutional psychom, and maybe what makes it unique, and what makes an academic institute a good outfit for science communication? So I'm currently working in one, but I've recently entered this space. I'm seeing both advantages and disadvantages of it, but I'd really also like to know this from you, because you've been working in this space for a while now. So what do you think about that?
It depends a lot the academic institution. So, however, there are general trends in academic institutions, and those trends are usually that they can be a bit traditional, a bit conservative, a bit or very bureaucratic places to work in. So it can be harder to organize events, for example, within institutional structure than if you were like a small company. A small company has less restrictions. If it's an institution that's a public body, for example, the University of Malta falls under public procurement. So there's a lot of scrutiny on anything you spend. Every single little thing you spend needs to be accounted for, which is good, for preventing corruption and waste of money and so on. But sometimes it can be really tough when you need to do things quickly, when you need to change things, when you might know who might be the best person to work with or the cheapest or whatever, but you still need to go through the whole process. That can be really challenging, and it actually ends up taking us a lot of time and effort and needing administrators dedicated to that in order to do things within those structured institutions. So institutionalized SciComm can be a bit stiff sometimes, but I think working within an institution also gives you opportunities. There are so many researchers working, for example, for the University of Malta, but in universities worldwide. So many researchers, so many brilliant people there, interesting people, so many people that need science communicators to help them communicate, to provide platforms for them. And I believe those platforms shouldn't be to promote the university. They should be there just so the researchers can meet and work with other people, be they citizens or industry or policymakers or other parts of society. I really believe an institution needs to be an integral part of society, and working with and for the society and the communities it forms part of. I mean, there is an important part of research which might be very theoretical and so on. You could be a quantum physicist, but that doesn't mean a quantum physicist can't dedicate some of their time to go engage children in schools or to work with artists to create artworks that engage the different parts of the public. These things are also important. And I think if we saw more institutions seeing their societal role, more institutions empowering their staff and researchers to be able to be part of NGOs, to be able to work with other parts of society and so on, we would see an even greater impact. Some of them are doing it, but I really see that these processes to engage the public, to involve citizens in research, can be institutionalized, and once they're institutionalized, I think the impact will really skyrocket.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. You made a very good point in saying that it is an integral part of the society, of the community as well, the university or the institution. So it makes a good outfit to actually connect with the general public and communicate and disseminate science. So that makes a lot of sense. Would you also like to shed light on maybe your teaching approach when it comes to science communication, and first of all, what kind of a course you teach, and what does the curriculum look like maybe, and then how much scope you have in there to be creative?
Currently, we're trying to build a master's level course in science communication, but that's going to take a couple of years. I teach on a lot of different units in science communication in the University of Malta. I've taught entrepreneurship in the past and marketing and so on. My science communication courses cover a broad spectrum of fields. I mix theoretical stuff with dialogic approaches towards science communication, so towards education, so asking a lot of questions in class, getting my or encouraging my students to reply to those questions, to form their own opinions, to research things themselves, to find out things themselves, to be able to discuss what is the meaning of dialogue, who should be doing science, who can do science, who should be engaging, what is the role of science communicators, who does the public trust the most, all of these different things which are really important. So there's this dialogic approach that I use within my classes. I try to always add a practical part. Maybe they reflect on things, they write things down themselves, they create events themselves. So also I like a lot the project-based learning and learning by doing. So I'd give assignments, like they have to come up with their own STEAM event and activity. They have to think about how to advertise it. They need to think about all the logistics behind it and how to evaluate it to see if they've reached their objectives. And I usually like to, if I give any form of project or assignment, I do want the students to send me a draft. I give them feedback on that, and then they resubmit. That feedback is important, otherwise how do we learn? If I'm teaching public presentation skills, which I do a lot of, I want the people to speak, get feedback from their peers and from me, and then try again and again and again. This is how you improve. And same for when I'm teaching science writing. And also I've taught also hands-on experiments and performing those experiments at a festival or in a science center. And I take the students within the science center and they engage. I'm there with them. I give them feedback. And I also get them to write reflective diaries, so they assess themselves at the same time. They can match that with the feedback I give them. This is a very important process for people to become what's known as a reflective practitioner. So a practitioner that is able to reflect on their own work and improve what they do, really. And I also teach a lot of interns. So for the Festival Science in the City, we have 8 interns coming every year, and they usually spend between 3 to 6 months in Malta, and they are learning by doing. They're running the logistics, they're running the awareness campaign. There are people managing them, constantly giving them feedback, developing their confidence and experience. And those are amazing experiences. Those really, 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 really look great on their CV. And I just received a request for an intern I had like 2 years ago, still using the Science in the City, even though they've had full-time psychom jobs in the UK. They're still using that Science in the City experience in Malta, because we get them to do a lot, we get them to try a lot of different things, and it's really wonderful. When you see people grow, come out of their shell, sometimes it could be their first office experience. We try to keep things fun, because the festival is meant to be fun, so we want things in the office to be like that as well. But it's also a lot of hard work. Organizing it well, is a lot of hard work.
Very, very true. In fact, having gone through like a mini version of it myself, I really know that actually conducting a psychom event along with a team, that gives you an idea into what really goes into making these science communication initiatives. And of course, the feedback from you, from other mentors, that is super, super helpful. So being able to do that, I think that's the perfect way to learn science communication, so to speak. And I'll come to Science in the City very soon. I have a lot of questions about that. But my favorite part, would you like to share about the STEAM summer school? And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it like a trailer to a longer, maybe a 2-year master's course in science communication? It's like a trailer for that. And I think it gave me a good crux of what this field would entail and what maybe a longer course would entail. But anyway, that aside, can you tell us about the STEAM Summer School, its inception, and how is it going now, how it has evolved? So everything about it.
Okay, so STEAM Summer School, I was at a conference in 2014. A professor told me in science communication, he told me what science communication needs right now is a comprehensive summer school which has, all the latest ideas of science communication within it. And I took that seriously, and I applied for Erasmus Plus funding and managed to get a group of European countries, including the UK at the time, the University of Edinburgh. That was wonderful for me because I went from being a student there to working with the people who had trained me in projects, which was amazing, really, really amazing that I had to come that far. And then I coordinated the creation of the summer school back then. Back then, it was more like what you'd expect maybe out of a condensed master's course. So we had a bit of writing, journalism, a bit of speaking, a bit of theater, a bit of evaluation, a bit of theory and dialogue. And it was 10 days. It was like even more intense than what you experienced, Shushti, because they had to organize 3 different events.
Agreed.
It was a bit nuts. Yes, I think it was a bit too much. We did it in Greece, Germany, Malta. And then I turned into a social enterprise, and I had to change it in order to make it more financially sustainable. So I had to reduce the amount of tutors and teachers. But that was also really pushed, and there were a really lot of positive changes by Amanda Matheson, who used to work with me and now has become a wonderful collaborator and partner on STEAM Summer School. She turned it into like the flipped classroom approach, and then we changed it again. We took it online during COVID, and the one you experienced is another change and more honing down into basically the summer school being there to help people practice their communication skills, build up their confidence in that, improvisation theater, and a bunch of other performance aspects and presentation. But at the same time, it's really focused on getting people to organize a targeted, effective science communication event, and to do that in 8-9 days. So we still cover a lot of theory, a lot of the stuff that was in the previous school, not all of it by far. But we focused it on that practical, on having those mentors there to guide you, to point out, maybe this can't work because of the amount of time. Think about your audience. Is this really reaching your aim and objectives? A lot of the things science communicators miss out on, because a lot of the time you can be very inexperienced or very experienced. You still run into these issues. If you're very experienced, you're like, I know this works, I'm just going to do that. And you end up doing activity after activity without really understanding why you're doing those activities. Sometimes you're just doing your job. This approach works, so you keep doing that. And you always need to innovate. You always need to assess, who is my audience? How are they thinking, feeling, behaving? What are their thoughts about science? What are their thoughts about other things? Where do they read their news? These really important things. And then seeing, what are my objectives? Do I want to encourage them to be more involved in their community? Do I want to become more active citizens? Do I want to encourage them to help develop a playground in a school? We've done that. Do I want them to be more interested in the research going on at the University of Malta, to, after a festival, actually go on the internet and look something up? those researchers or science in general? Do I want to build up their confidence, their children, and I want to build up their confidence in science? There's a lot of different objectives you can have. Knowing your objectives is key, and then trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to match those objectives? What can I do to get these kids who might not be interested in science, who might have had previous bad experiences in it? How can I link it to what they're interested in now? How can I link it to sports? How can I link it to arts or design? How can I link it to, food or cooking or their history or culture or, the latest football, cricket, rugby match, whatever? All of these things can help inspire, build confidence, and so on. And obviously, then you need to evaluate it to see if it's actually met those objectives, and reading a bit what other people have done, how they've studied what they've done, and if it worked or not. I think that's key from learning to each other, which goes back to the networks. So the networks can be also tied into this and building your own science communication practice. So STEAM Summer School has been a wonderful experience because we've had hundreds of students now, I think over 200. Some of them got, married to each other. Some of them got, and two invited me to their wedding, and sadly I couldn't go, but I was too busy. It pains me to this day. But these are connections which you don't expect out of a course, a degree, and so on. You're not running them for those reasons. But when you do things where people have to work together, that's why the project-based learning, those intense experiences are experiences people remember. And because they remember them, I think it makes them more worthwhile. So I really love these forms of education, really. And I dedicate a lot of my time to them also.
Wonderful. If I may also ask you, what kind of differences did you see in the batch of students or participants coming in everywhere with passing years? Do you see people are more invested in science communication? Do you see that they are more aware of some things early on in their career? Is there any change at all? Or do you see a different, completely different set of people every time? So basically, from the time you started in science communication versus now that you're seeing people from, in fact, all over Europe and all over the world coming into STEAM Summer School, what are the changes that you are seeing in the upcoming science communicators?
That's a really, really good question, Shrishti. I really love it. I think the biggest difference I see is two things. One is COVID, and the other one is when we flipped from Erasmus Plus project, where we're paying for people's travel and accommodation and so on to come to Malta or Greece or Germany back then. Now it's just run in Malta. When we're paying for them, or when they had to pay. When we were a larger group and we were paying for them, that larger group definitely led to some people there not being interested in what we were doing, or thinking it was something, but in fact it was something else, and these sort of things. Some of the things, like people thinking it's something, but it was something else, still happened later. And we're trying to correct that with our marketing and how we do things. Because it's such an innovative program, it's so different to how people normally learn, that it comes as a surprise sometimes. That, hey, actually, you need to do the event. We don't know what the event is. You're going to figure it out. It's going to be your event. You're going to create it. And the consistent thing year after year is it's always something. Once you create those creative processes, people are creative. And the better we've gotten at creating the environment for that creativity to flourish, the more fantastic the outcomes we've seen. Like what you guys created was utterly stunning, and to think you've created it in just a few days, it was like, wow, really impressed us. There was acting, there was artworks being created, experiments, performances, different little sketches. It was mind-blowing and all about colors.
Yeah.
It was really nice to see, really nice, because that wasn't how it started originally. In the beginning of the program, it was, and it's just 9 days, right? In the beginning of the program, it was, let's do some experiments as we would in a science festival, because that's what we know. So it's really nice to see that once people are challenged, they do change. And that's like what the program is about. So that was a big change I saw in the type of students when they actually had to pay or cost to their institution or get money from their own grant or fund and so on. They've put more time investment in it, and the students the participants were more dedicated. The other thing I mentioned was COVID. COVID went purely online. And although people found the experience intense, a bit tiring because you're by your screen for so long, we got people really diverse, We got people from Africa, Europe, and Asia as well, Southeast Asia, from the Philippines. We never got such a wide distribution. And I love that. I love that diversity, and it gives you different perspectives. And I think it's much more rewarding for everyone then, because they experience things that are so different to their normal environment. So COVID and us going online really helped change things. However, after COVID, went back to the real world one. One, because we prefer running the real world one, where you get to connect with people in a much better way. But two, in my science communication events, I did notice that there was a massive backlash against online events. I don't know if it will go back up. It might, where we get more interested in online events again. But in my practice, I saw people moving away from online stuff. So and I've seen that in conferences and stuff, the number of people who attend conferences online and so on is much fewer than during COVID. During COVID, it was amazing because conferences got cheaper and all of these kind of things. So you got connections you wouldn't have had otherwise. But yeah, I think real world experiences are incredibly important. But another thing that I saw change in our students was what they were interested in. Especially with COVID, the COVID pandemic, students are much more interested in now not just communicating the science, but seeing what people understand and how they perceive science, and why people aren't taking a vaccine, or why are they believing in some fake news and misinformation, these really complex problems, and try to work with that. So I have seen an increase in community and those how to there are about science. So the change that I have noticed is that I have seen an increase in people's interest in how people understand or why people are believing in misinformation and these misunderstandings that are spreading as well, and also in community engagement and wanting to involve the community in research and science. I have seen a big increase in that. And also, there was an interesting in things like climate change. It's even bigger now.
Yeah. So I do agree that because of COVID, maybe internet brought us a lot more closer. But I'm really glad I could attend the in-person summer school, because that is a different magic altogether. I mean, actually being with those people, and all kinds of people, all kinds of different people, in terms of their cultures, in terms of the work they do, even in terms of what kind of science communicators they are, to actually interact with them and make a science communication even possible. It's a lot more trickier than we might imagine, but it's also a lot more fun. But yes, I do think that after COVID, we have been, as much as misinformation has been spreading, I think we are also becoming more and more aware of this misinformation. And we do not believe immediately in stuff, which makes the job of science communicators a little more hard and a little more fun, I think.
Yes,
So,
yes, for sure, for sure.
exactly.
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting development, and because of COVID, the surveys that happened in 2021 showed that there was actually an increase in trust in science. But a lot of the people I asked, my students I asked in class and so on, thought there was a decrease in the interest in science, and not interest,
Is
sorry,
it?
decrease in the trust of scientists.
Mm.
When actually surveys were showing there was a 10% worldwide increase in trust. So I think COVID really, it was hard. COVID was really hard, but it really provided an opportunity for us to innovate, to change what we do, and then learn from that also, and not just keep doing things as we were doing before, because we just couldn't, right? It was becoming obvious that that wasn't working, that you need to change. The world changes. What is important for the world changes, and that means that science communication needs to change to adapt to that.
Yeah, that is very, very true. That is true indeed. It did give us an opportunity to connect more with people, and people are more curious now about themselves and what do scientists really do to help them. So that is a good advantage, of course. But of course, because I think this is a good note to talk about science in the city, maybe, because that is a good platform where everybody, be it science communicators, scientists, um, general public, for the lack of a better word, but people from basically all kinds of professions, backgrounds, everybody coming in together and talking science. I really enjoy the festival setting, and we try to recreate it in our 9-day workshop, a very, very small version of it. But we Science in a City is coming very, very soon, and we would like to know everything about it, what is going to happen. So first of all, what it is all about, and what can we expect in the festival this time.
Okay, so Science in the City is Malta's national science and arts festival. We get about 6% of the population coming. Malta is a small place. It's about 500,000 people. So it's a big event. We get close to 100 organizations taking part. They're engaging. They're the organizations. Some of them might be doing shows and performances or workshops. We also commission artists and who are working with scientists in order to run these workshops. They could be about upcycling clothes. They could be about space debris. They could be about a lot of different things happening at the University of Malta or internationally, research. We try to touch on a lot of different topics and so on. But we also have online events. So we've had some online talks, we've had some online workshops as well. We've had some fantastic ones, like in the past, the Institute of Digital Games did a create your own digital game. And that workshop went really, really well.
Are these open to everyone? Where
The
can
online ones, yeah, they can be accessed internationally. We're also going to do our virtual festival, which is live streaming of the actual main performances of the festival, and that is something that helps us actually reach a wide range of people. We did the virtual festival because of COVID, and when we did it during COVID, we had 20,000 people attend online, unique views. And now last year that dropped to about 1,000. However, we still think it's important to have it because our surveys showed us that when we went online, we attracted people from lower educational background. So it gave us a more diverse audience, really important for us as a festival. So we want to keep that online component for those people who can't come on the 29th and 30th to Valletta in Malta. We do it around a beautiful fountain called Triton Fountain, and in a nearby green area called Biscottine, and also in the Catholic Institute and Sala San Domingo, which is a theater space underneath the church, a really unique space. So those are our main street and performance festivals. But we also do this virtual festival, and unfortunately, I'm not remembering the date of the virtual festival, which is probably the most important for this podcast. But I'll send it to you, and hopefully you can sneak it in there, because that's going to be free for everyone, and people can see the performances we've done at Science in the City without needing to come to Malta.
That'll be wonderful. That will really be wonderful. I'll be looking forward to it.
All right, brilliant. This year's festival is going to have live street art painting on space debris. It's going to have these upcycling workshops. It's going to have, we're bringing in people from Edinburgh and from the UK also to come do shows and performances, to do workshops on comic books, using comic books to create characters. We've got an institute, St. Martin's Institute here, doing virtual reality, and people can experience that. And obviously, we're going to have a lot of researchers there so that people can talk to researchers doing some of this work. The virtual reality is on one of Malta's, if I'm not mistaken, it's about the Hypogeum, which are these Neolithic underground temples in Malta. They were burial sites. They're some of the oldest in the world, cut into stone. We also have the oldest freestanding stone structures in the world in Malta. They're about 6,000-7,000 years old, which is really amazing when you think about it. They were built between 2,500 to 2,600 BCE. Sorry, now. So yeah, really remarkable stuff. You wouldn't expect it out of such a small island. We even have accountancy students coming to the festival, and they'll be doing things like investment games. And in the past, they've done theater productions about what can go wrong if you invest wrongly, and turn that into a dark comedy. These sort of things. You know, we try to be creative, we try to be innovative, combine science and art, to talk about the research at the University of Malta and engage all these different groups of people at the same time as well. So there's so much going on. It's impossible to talk about all of it in this podcast. I don't even know everything that's going on in the festival because as I said before, there are about 80 organizations involved, and they're doing amazing things from robotics, virtual reality, arts, creativity, design, and so on. So yes, how your listeners can be probably now the virtual festival, and I'll send you the details for that soon.
Awesome. So we can expect everything Psychom and Science in the City, and people in India. I mean, at least me, I'll be looking forward to it, to experiencing it virtually. But yes, we are all super, super excited for everything that Science in the City entails. And this will be on 29th, if I'm not wrong. What are the dates again for this?
The 29th and 30th will be the Real World Festival. The virtual festival, we're going to do it in, if I'm not mistaken, in November. And we've chosen that so that it's actually, but you'll be able to book through Eventbrite for free, and that you can automatically put in your calendar, and you'll get a Zoom link for the virtual festival. We're doing it so much later because in Malta right now it's about 30 degrees, sunny, and people tend to prefer to be outside than at a virtual festival. So we delay it till winter when we hope it's a rainy day and people will be inside and wanting to watch some performances about how the blood works, or community engagement in Valletta, and the issues these children had to work with, or upcycling clothes, or a lot of different topics that is part of our performance festival. We also have a seismologist working with a puppeteer, so a person who makes puppets, and an artist, and they've created this story called Mitoscienza. So this is led by the artist Jeremy Gregg, and you join a young child as she discovers what is myth, what is science about yes about the Minotaurs in Greece. So something really, really exciting, I think.
Fantastic. This sounds really exciting. I can't wait to experience all of this. So before we end the conversation, here's a question that I like to ask everybody that comes on my podcast. If you had the experience that you now have and you were to relive your undergrad days, what is that you would do differently?
I think in my undergrad, I would have probably studied harder, but also I still hadn't been inspired by then, and I wasn't as dedicated as now I reflect on it as I should have been. But even more important than that, it's what you do as part of the university or outside of it. So I would have been more active in student organizations. I would have started probably organizing events then, not in my master's and PhD. I would have probably started writing more science writing and science journalism and photography and so on. More in societies and communities and so on back then. That's, I think, what I would have done. I would have explored those things I mentioned that I did during my PhD at a younger age, because I think that would have helped me realize what I was really passionate about and what I wanted to dedicate my life to, rather than exploring that later on in my life. So be active in student organizations, contribute towards them, do things complementary to your degree and outside of your degree as well, whilst you're doing an undergrad. Don't just study. Would be, study, get your grades, the exams and so on, but do stuff out of it. That is incredibly important for your CV and also for your well-being, doing sports on a regular basis. I climb now and go to CrossFit, and those are very important for me.
Awesome. So I think it's time to get off record. Thank you so much for this lovely conversation. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Shushti, and thank you again. One, for starting this podcast. We always need more people speaking about science communication, but also your passion and interest also. I mean, I found it really remarkable just how hardworking and creative and passionate you are about science communication and wanting to engage different groups of people with research. Thank you
Well,
very much.
I'm just selfish. I love to listen to stories, and this is how I do it.
And that was all for today. Thanks for tuning in to episode 18 of the Purple Science podcast. As I promised, the Science in the City Festival is coming. The dates are in. It's on 29th and 30th of September. So if you are in and around Malta, do join this festival. I can guarantee you that it is gonna be a ton load of fun. But if you're sitting in India thinking, how am I gonna go there? Don't worry. A few more months, and the India Science Festival is also coming up very, very soon. But what I'm not gonna make you wait about is an amazing episode with Dr. Sara Iqbal. We talk everything about India Science Festival and a lot more. So tune in again for another story only on Purple Science Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Purple Science Podcast. We share stories every Tuesday. Our inbox is always open for your feedback, and our DMs across all social media platforms linked in the description are open to your unique stories. If you know somebody who might benefit from this, do share the podcast with them and spread the joy of learning.